so much for having me here today. I really do appreciate it. We're going to be talking a little bit about querying literary agents. It's meant to be kind of a crash course on the basics of querying agents. So the rest is kind of up to you. You're going to have to dig a little bit deeper. You're going to have to research the agents, find out how to find them, and also more about the specifics of your genre, because depending on what you write, what you will need is a little bit different. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But again, I wanted to say thank you very much for this. I appreciate it. As Margie mentioned, I'm a member of Capital Crimes, and we have several members who have presented here today, or who have presented to your group before. So it's really an honor to have been asked to do this. So thank you. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself, because I didn't realize Margie was going to give you my life story. But like she said, I am a former newspaper reporter. I actually covered Placer County for a number of years when I was working for first the neighbors section of the Bee. Does anyone remember that? Oh, yeah. That paper? Okay. I worked for them for a little while, and then later on, the Bee called me back and asked me to work for their metro section, covering Placer County. So I worked in the Roseville Bureau of the Bee, and I covered mostly Roseville, Rockland, and Lincoln. I did a little bit of Loomis and Penryn as well. I didn't really get up into Auburn as much though, but I've been here for like the Mandarin Festival. That was quite a while ago though. Now, like Margie said, I work for University Communications at Sacramento State. And so what I do is I write stories for our website or social media content that amplify the great things that our faculty, our students, and our staff are doing both on campus and out in the community. One of the stories I've been writing in the last year or so is on the Placer Center, which is going to be a satellite campus of Sac State. It's kind of a joint campus between Sac State and Sierra College. And the idea is that so students out here in Placer County don't have to drive all the way into Sacramento to take their classes and get their degree. So that is coming soon. On a more personal note, I'm married to an elementary school principal. My husband and I have 2 teenage daughters, and so that's a lot of fun, as you can imagine. Neither of them drive yet, though, so we spend a lot of time chauffeuring them around. In my spare time, I like to read mysteries. I write mysteries, so I like reading mysteries. I love watching British mysteries on TV. I love true crime documentaries, Dateline. I also really love to cook and to bake, and I really love Zumba. That's my only form of exercise. Yeah, there you go. See, I mean, there's a lot of us Zumba lovers out there. Let's see. And as Margie said, my first book, Ghosts of Waikiki, came out in November by Crooked Lane. It's about an out-of-work newspaper reporter named Maya Wong, who reluctantly returns home to Hawaii to be a ghostwriter for a rich, controversial developer. But when his father's body ends up in the mansion pool, Maya discovers that coming home to paradise can be murder. I won't go over the words because Margie already did. But again, my book is available out in the back, and it's going to be released on paperback in February as well. So yeah, I'm very excited about that. Okay. All right, so let's get started now and talk about what we're going to be doing here today. We're going to be talking a little bit about the package that you'll need to put together before you even start querying. So we'll go over some of the things that you'll need to have assembled and ready to go. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the ways you can query agents. There's different methods that you can use. And then I'll have a few tips, and then we can have some Q&A afterwards. Oh, actually, I wanted to kind of get a sense of the room. Do you guys understand the process of querying and traditional versus self-publishing and all of that, or should I talk a little bit about that? Okay, I'll go ahead and talk about it, yeah. So most traditional authors, they've published through a publisher who paid them in advance. Most of them are represented by a literary agent, and that's the person who will sell the manuscript for them to a publisher. The publisher will give the author in advance, and the agent receives a commission from that advance as well as future royalties for negotiating, and they get to kind of be the bad guy. If you're having issues with the publisher, your agent is the one that kind of helps you out with that. So that's kind of why it's nice to have an agent. And the standard commission is usually about 15%. Let's see. There are a lot of publishers out there now, though, that will take unagented manuscripts, whereas maybe 10 years ago that was very, very rare. And Crooked Lane is one of those publishers that will. So, and there's also hybrid publishers, which are kind of a combination of self-publishing and traditional publishing. And so a lot of the things that we're going to be talking about here today will be really helpful for whatever route you choose. You'll kind of have some of those skills that you can use if you choose to do a hybrid publisher or self-publishing or an unagented, if you want to approach a publisher on your own. Okay, so before you start to query, the first thing you need is a polished manuscript. The number one rookie mistake that people make, and don't feel bad if you've done it because I did it, is querying too soon. You've finished the manuscript and you feel like a huge sense of accomplishment, so you want to rush out and get it out into the world. But chances are it's not really ready for agents or for publishers to see yet. So you want to polish it up and make sure it shines before you start querying. So these are some ways that you can work on and polish your manuscript. Use beta readers. These are friends of friends, these are maybe librarians, people who are avid readers, maybe not necessarily writers. You give your manuscript to, and they will point out the flaws. They will point out the inconsistencies, the plot holes, the things that don't quite make sense. So you need that. It's in your head, so it makes sense to you, but you need it to make sense to readers as well. You need to have critique partners, and these are going to be writers. So they can give you that same perspective from a writer's sense. If you are writing a book that isn't an area of your expertise, it isn't your personal experience or your point of view, you may need a sensitivity or an authenticity reader as well to give your book the ring of truth. You want it to be authentic and genuine. And that can be a neighbor, that can be someone you pay for too. There are services, editors who will do that as well. You need to read your book out loud. Either you read it out loud or you have someone read it out loud to you. I love Microsoft Word, the read aloud function. Does anyone use that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I call her the Microsoft lady, or the Word lady is actually what I call her. And it's a little bit robotic, but you can get over it. And you want to, what I call, believe the stumble. So if someone stumbles over reading your work, then it's likely it's awkward or there's something not quite working in that sentence. So believe it and fix it. What I like to do when I use the Word lady, though, is I wait till I'm almost close. When I think it's almost ready, I print it out, I hit read aloud, and then I make notes. Oh, that sentence sounds terrible. That's awkward. Why did I do that? And I mark it in red, and then I go back and fix it later. You may want to consider hiring a developmental editor or proofreader or copy editor if you have the resources. If you don't worry about it. I didn't. But some people like that. Some people need that third-party objective person that they don't know to help them develop the story a little bit better. And then the other thing that you need to do is make sure that the word count fits your genre. Every genre has a different range of words that are appropriate. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Okay. The other thing you're going to need is an elevator pitch. Do you guys know what an elevator pitch is? Yeah, I hate it. I took a very long time to develop mine, and I had a really hard time memorizing it too. But it's just basically a few sentences that blend hook and summary. It's just a teaser. It's kind of like the thing that you hear in a trailer at a movie theater, or sometimes you see on like a tagline on a movie poster. It's just to whet someone's appetite, to kind of pull them into your book. And then the idea, again, is you tell someone your elevator pitch and while you're on the elevator ride, and that person may be an agent or a publisher. You should include stakes in your elevator pitch, and you want to memorize it, because that elevator pitch is going to live with you for as long as you and your book shall live, because you're going to be using it to get an agent, and then you're going to be using it to get a publisher, and then you're going to be using it to get readers. So at 3 years down the line, I'm still doing my elevator pitch. In fact, you heard it earlier when I was talking about my book. But another example, has anyone ever read IQ by Joe Ide by any chance? Okay, so it's about a private investigator who basically will work for, for food or anything, the money, and it's set in Long Beach, I believe. And so his elevator pitch was Homes in the Hood. Yes, you have a question?
You went too fast past the top one. I don't know what stakes is.
I don't either.
Okay, all right, so it's the thing that's going to, it's the do or die sort of thing. And I frame everything in mysteries because that's what I write and that's what I really love reading. So it's like if you don't find out the killer, you're going to go to jail for the rest of your life, or you're going to lose your house, or what is it that's going to make the character want to solve the mystery or be in the book? Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
All right, and so here is where you're going to be looking for agents. You are going to need to do your research. I found that querying was a lot like dating, actually. And then these days, you're never going to swipe right unless you at least Google the prospective date first. And so in other words, you don't want to query an agent without knowing a little bit about that agent. You want to know what genre they represent, what kind of deals have they made, who are their clients. You may want to know a little bit about what kind of person they are. You never know. And there are a lot of ways for you to research agents. One of them is the manuscript wish list, and that's a website where you can plug in the name of an agent that you're interested in, and you get a profile of that agent. They will tell you, these are the kind of manuscripts I'm looking for. These are the books I've been reading that I love. I would love something like this mixed with this. Sometimes it'll have like a fun fact about them. It will mention some of their clients as well. And it's just a really great way for you to find out whether or not that agent will be a right fit for you. Because you never want to, you never want to query an agent that doesn't represent your genre, first of all, and B, you don't want to rush to make a deal with an agent before you know it's really the right person for you. Because actually, having a bad agent or an agent that's not the right fit is worse than having no agent. Publishers Marketplace is another great way to find an agent, or to do research on agents, I should say. That is a paid membership. I think it's about $25 a month. And every day I get an email telling me, these are the publishing deals that have been announced today. And it'll be like, the author of such and such sold her new novel, blah, 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 to this publisher, and the deal was made by her agent, so-and-so. And so that tells you a lot. It tells you who that person's agent is. If you know the author and it's someone who's familiar to you, and maybe if someone who is similar to your book, that's an agent that you might want to query. You also know what kind of deal that agent can negotiate. And so you can actually look for an agent's name, and then it'll tell you like a list of their most recent deals. Query Tracker is also another way for you to keep track of agents, because it'll tell you, well, that this agent is open for submissions, or this agent is closed for submissions now. I think it tells you their genres. People can comment on agents there as well, so you can find out a little bit about how quickly they can turn around manuscripts. There's also, so again, it's like dating, right? You do a little bit of online cyber stalking when you are dating someone, and it is the same for agents. Agents are on social media, they do podcasts, they're on YouTube. And so you can watch interviews with them, you can listen to podcasts with them, you can find out what kind of things they're looking for, their favorite books, their favorite TV shows. And social media, you can find out again if they're on submission and who they're following. You can maybe find out a little bit about their agencies as well. Yes?
And what about conferences like Book Passes? There are a lot of agents there. Can you query them right there?
You can also find agents at conferences. Book Passage in particular, they have maybe one or two, and you sign up specifically. You make appointments. Typically, you make appointments to meet with agents at conferences. And we'll talk a little bit about that too, a little bit later. The Book Passage one is a little different. It's, but it's a good way to network for sure, going to conferences. Yeah. And that's when the elevator pitch comes in handy, because you might end up like in the line with an agent, and then you have kind of an informal pitch, right? Yeah. Okay.
Can I say one thing?
Yeah.
At Crimes, they had a producer from, I don't know if you remember when he was there, and I went up and said something to him, and he immediately said, "Send me a page, I want to hear it."
There you go.
I was so scared I didn't know what to do. But it can happen
At any time. And so if you have your query package ready, all you have to do is say, give me your email, and then there you go. You can send all your stuff to him there. So this is a screenshot, or a couple of screenshots I put together of the manuscript wish list website. It's where when I was querying for agents and I was looking up agents, this one is a profile for Lori Galvin, and she's the person I eventually signed with. So it has like a little profile, tells you a little bit about her clients, what she's looking for, and fun fact about her. Most importantly, the submission guidelines. They're going to tell you, this is how I want you to contact me. Follow those guidelines. Don't do anything differently. Okay. All right. And another really important thing is the query letter, which is like a business cover letter to an agent. Some agents will only take query letters at first, and then they'll read those and decide whether they want to read your pages from your manuscript. So the query letter really has to be fantastic. You have to have certain things in your query letter. It is the way to grab an agent's interest. Most agents, from what I understand, this is what they read first. So even if they do take your pages, they will read the query letter first. So you want to make sure it sings. Again, you also want to be concise, 300 words maximum. Agents get thousands of queries every year. My agent, at one point, I remember she tweeted this, that she got 2,500 queries in 1 year. And so that's a lot of letters and pages to read through. So you don't want to give them an excuse to not read your cover letter, your query letter, or your pages by being too long-winded. Okay, so here is an example of a query letter and the different elements that you will need to include in your query letter. I had some handouts, so you can look back at those as well. I can make more, or I can email it to Margie, and she can send it out to people as well. This is the one that I wrote for my agent, and my book ended up changing a lot, so that's not exactly what my book is about anymore. All right, so the salutation and the opening of your query letter. So we live in a really diverse world. Things are changing a lot, and people have different perspectives. They like to be dressed different ways. So you need to respect that, especially if you want this agent to represent you. So it's a good idea to make sure you either know that agent's pronouns that they use, or what I did, I kind of took the easy way out. I used first and last name to make it easier, because sometimes agents are not always upfront about what pronouns they use. Okay, and so it's a personalized introduction is always really nice. It's kind of a nice touch. That's if you know something about that agent that made you want to query that particular agent. So for instance, if he represents a client whose book you loved and inspired you to write this manuscript, you can say that here. If he mentioned in a podcast that one of his favorite books is such and such, you can say that was one of my favorite books as well, and that's why it's what inspired me to write. I would do it when it was genuine and true. I didn't try to force it too much. Some agents like it, some don't, so you don't have to do this, but it is kind of a nice thing to do if it's there. You also need to include the vital stats for your book in the first paragraph, or the opening of your letter. That includes the title. Don't worry about it if you're not quite sure on the title. It'll probably change anyway, so it can be a working title. Doesn't matter. The genre of your book. You need to know the genre and or the subgenre of your book. This is important for a lot of reasons, but you should know what you've written and what the market for that book would be. Who you're writing this book for. Is it an adult book? Is it for YA or young adult? Is this a middle grade book? Picture book? You need to tell the agent this as well. So the idea is that agents represent a lot of different ages and genres, and so you're putting it into context for them as they're reading along. You're reading your letter. No works in progress. Remember, polished manuscripts only, so you should state that this book is completed. And the word count for your book, or your manuscript, sorry. So word count is really important. Genres have specific word count ranges. For example, mysteries are typically 70 to 90,000 words. So if I submitted a manuscript that was 150,000 words, that's a red flag to an agent. And again, remember, agents get thousands of queries. Don't give them an excuse to whittle it down by your query. So you want to make sure your manuscript fits in whatever range your genre is supposed to be. And there are ways to find out what your genre word range is. Google it. Okay, the next part of your query letter is basically the dust jacket, the cover flap, or what you would read on the back of a book. It's going to be the hook and summary. The hook is, again, 1 or 2 sentences where you grab the agent's attention with who your character is. You want to tell the agent why they should be reading about this character. What is your character's motivations? Why should a reader care about this person? And then the summary is, again, it's the teaser, it's the trailer for your book. You're not going to include spoilers in this section. It's just getting the agent to want to read your manuscript. And after that, you're going to have comps. And actually, comps can go in the introduction or it can go at the end of your query letter. This is a must. You need to have at least 2 books that are comparable to yours, 2 published books that are comparable to yours. They were published in the same genre and within the last 2 to 5 years. Some agents will want 2 to 3 years instead. Some agents will also want a debut author or a debut book. And that's because the publishing market is constantly fluctuating. A vampire book that was a hot seller, 10 years ago might not be a hot seller today. So you don't want to compare your book to a book that won't sell today. And they just want to know, A, that you know what's going on currently, and they also want to know where they would place your book. And so the typical way to say it is, my book would fit nicely between such and such and this other book. You do not want to compare your book to some runaway bestseller. This is not where you're going to use that reference. But here you are. This isn't necessary, but it's kind of fun, and it gives people, or readers and agents, a sense of what this book is. And it's where you compare your book to you frame it within pop culture. So X meets Y. It's like this, but different. here's where it's okay to use Dan Brown's Da Vinci Code or Harry Potter. So some examples are Jane Austen's Emma, set in Beverly Hills. It's Clueless, the movie Clueless. If you haven't seen it, you should watch it. It's really fun. Lord of the Rings, but based on War of the Roses. That's Game of Thrones, a huge hit, right? Jane Marple in New England, Murder, She Wrote. Yeah. And remember I talked to you a little bit about Joe Eday's elevator pitch, Holmes in the Hood? Yeah, that's also a really good example of a same but different. Okay. You also want to have a very brief biography of yourself, where it needs to emphasize your writing experience. You should try to establish your authority to write this book. So if you wrote a medical thriller and you are a physician, you should definitely say that here. If you are, like for me, I was a newspaper reporter, so I explicitly said that. I also explicitly said that I'm Asian American. Mention any writing awards that you might have. It's also good to mention any writing organizations that you're part of. Agents and publishers want to know that you are serious about this, so they want to know that you're part of a professional organization. Yes, and I probably don't need to tell you that. And if you've been published in magazines or anthologies, then here is where you would also want to mention that. You should only query one manuscript. So if you want to do a series, even if you already have like the second and third books written, all you are going to say is that this is a standalone book in a potential series. Include any author endorsements that you may have, and be sure to include your contact information, any social media handles or email that you may have. If you're going to go through Query Manager, which a lot of agents do, you may not have to include that in there. But some agents want you to query them through email, so you should include that because they do want to know that you are out there, that you're on social media. Okay, so that's your query letter. The other thing you need to have is a synopsis. And this is a really good example of why you should never query too soon. Because I didn't know the difference between the blurb or the summary and a synopsis. Synopsis is very, very hard to write, and you're going to hate it. It's going to be torture. Maybe the hardest thing you ever write, because it's you condensing your 90,000 word manuscript into at the most 2 pages, double-spaced. And it's basically a very dry rundown of everything that happens in your book, everything significant that happens in your book. And this is where you will include spoilers, including whodunit. And the idea of this is agents, if they liked your query letter, if they liked your first pages, it's kind of a quick way for them to see that you haven't gone off the rails somewhere in your book. So for instance, if you started out as a thriller and you end as a rom-com, that's a problem. And they want to know that. My agent actually ended up using my synopsis kind of as a cheat sheet when we were revising my book, because they read your book so many times before it goes to a publisher that you forget, wait, did that body happen there or did it happen on page 10? And so it's a way to check and make sure that you're following along correctly. But basically, you're going to write it in the third person, even if your book is written in the first person. And again, it has spoilers. And you can write it like a news article or a police report. Have you ever read a police report? It's just the facts, ma'am, basically. But you do want to include emotions if it's pertinent. For instance, he got mad, so he killed that person. That's important for them to know. I actually developed a way, because I had to write a synopsis for my second book, kind of as a way to, it was like sort of like a book proposal. And if you follow the 3-act structure for your book, or if you have a particular structure method that you follow, then you use those particular elements, those flagpoles, and then you kind of fill in between. And I found that that really helps. So for instance, I started with the inciting incident, and then I included the plot point 1, the middle point, plot point 2, and then climax and the denouement. And actually I was able to get it down to 2 pages. So I found that was a fairly easy way to tackle the synopsis part. Okay, so now you have your package all completed and you're ready to start querying. These are the ways that you can query an agent. My favorite way was the cold query, and if you are in sales at all, it's like the cold call, where you call some random person and you try to sell them something. Although in this day and age, it's done through email, so that's fantastic, or online. You need to find out how your agent wants to have submissions brought to them, and you follow those guidelines. A lot of them use Query Manager these days. Query Manager. Some just want you to email them. I really liked it because if you have everything ready, you just upload it, you hit send, and you're done. It's very low stress, and you don't even have to talk to anybody. The problem with a cold query is your query goes way down to the pile, the end of their slush pile. So it could be months before you hear anything from this agent. It could be months before they even look at your query. But Query Tracker will actually tell you, I believe, what number you are. Live pitches are a great way to get to the top of that pile. That's where we were talking about some of those writing conferences actually have segments built into them where you can live pitch an agent. And remember how we were talking a little bit about how querying is like dating? Well, live pitch is like speed dating. Has anyone ever done speed dating?
I've done the agent thing. So.
Okay, yeah. We actually have it for writers too, which is that's a lot of fun. But yeah, so basically you're in a room with a bunch of people who are trying to find dates, and you sit across from a person, and you get 5 minutes to talk and figure out whether you want to date that person, and then a bell rings and you move on to the next person. And so that's basically what live pitching is for agents. I was actually at the ITW Thriller Fest in June in New York, and they have a whole afternoon dedicated to live pitching, and I volunteered to help out with that. There's like 10 agents in a room, people line up, and they have 5 to 10 minutes, I believe, to give them their elevator spiel, and then answer some questions. And at the end of it, if the agent was interested, they'll ask for pages. People had like there was a woman there who had a mugshot of the agents, and then like little information about them, and then she had them, it was bound by a spiral, like a little plastic spiral thing like you do at Kinko's. And she was just flipping through that and like going through what agents she wanted to pitch. And you typically pay extra for that. I did it on Zoom several years back during the pandemic. It's very nerve-wracking, I'm not going to lie. And you think you can't believe that you actually paid money to go through this torture. But the upside of that is it's a good way to have the first face-to-face contact with agents, because even if they don't ask for your manuscript, you often get feedback on either your pitch, maybe on your book itself, and that's really valuable. It also helps you figure out whether this agent is going to be a right fit for you as well. And then if they do ask for your manuscript, yours goes to the top of the pile. They will remember you, and they'll want to read yours before they get to the rest of their slush pile. So that's important. The other way to get to the top of the slush pile is social media pitch contests, which is really weird. It's kind of crazy. But it's basically one-day events, either on X or now Blue Sky. And the Blue Sky seems to be the place where it's growing more, and X is declining. But you can pitch your manuscript. Agents know this is the day where they should be looking for manuscripts or pitches. And but you have to conform to the parameters of however that platform wants you to post. So if you are limited to 280 characters, your pitch has to fit within that character limit, which is very hard. So remember, 90,000 words, 280 characters. So that means every space punctuation mark, hashtag counts as a character.
Really?
Yes. Yeah.
Can you repeat that? Repeat what you just said.
So every space, punctuation mark, hashtag counts as a character. Not, yeah, so you have 200, I think Blue Sky is 280 and Twitter or X is 300 characters. And, but if an agent likes your post or hearts your post, that means they're interested and you can query them and they will be looking for your query in their pile. You still need to have the query package, just like with the live pitch. You still need to have all those elements, but again, the advantage is you get to the top of their pile. So that is actually how I found my agent, was a few years ago when the Twitter pitch contest, it was still called Twitter at that time too. Twitter pitch contests were still really big. I heard about this through a friend of a friend, and I thought it was the dumbest thing I'd ever heard. And I wasn't even on Twitter, but I joined Twitter when I started writing my manuscript because I heard that was how a friend of a friend found her agent. And so I became acquainted with the writing community. I figured out how these things work. I actually took a class on how to write a tweet because the character limit is just really killer. I participated in 2 Twitter pitch events. This was my first one. It was Hive Pitch. It doesn't exist anymore. I got 7 hearts there. I think only one of them was an agent. You're not supposed to heart a pitch if you're not an agent on those days, but some people forget. That one like was Lori Galvin, and who I ended up not only querying, but I signed with her. And then I also participated in API Pit. The big one back in those days was PitMad, but also that does not exist anymore. However, Blue Sky, they are starting to have pitch contests. So you should Google that, look that up, and join Blue Sky and maybe do it that way. It does really help you hone in on your book too, I find. Like on the theme or your character, helps you with an elevator pitch too. Okay, so now we're getting to the tips section. So one of the things I heard that was recommended was to write your query letter and synopsis before you even start writing your manuscript. And I know for you pantsers out there, your panties are getting in a bunch right now, and I understand that. I myself am a plotter, so it works for me. I didn't exactly do this, but I can see how it works. Even if you're a pantser, you know the general idea of your book, right? So if you kind of develop an elevator pitch for it, it kind of helps you stay, it's like a theme that you can stay with as you're writing. It's something like, kind of like a North Star that you keep writing, going towards. Same if for a query letter. This is what you're trying to tell your agent or a prospective agent. So if you keep writing that way towards that goal, that'll help shape your book. But again, I didn't do this, so I can't vouch for it completely. This is a method. I was part of a Facebook group it was a paid membership. It helped you query agents. And they had a specific method that they thought was good for querying agents. I didn't do this, but I can see where it makes a lot of sense. It's where you compile a very, very long list of agents because some people are querying hundreds of agents before they find their agent. And then you kind of rank them. Your A agents, your B agents, your C agents, according to the ones you think are your favorites. So A agents, your favorite agents will be in the A group, and C would be the ones you're not sure are going to be a fit. And the idea of this is that it will help you figure out what in your package is and isn't working. So that initial list of agents that you're querying, if they don't ask for pages, that likely means it's your query letter that needs to be worked on. Something in your query letter isn't grabbing their interest, so you go back and you fix your query letter. And then you query your B agents. And if they say, oh, yeah, send me some pages, then you know, okay, your query letter works. Let's leave that alone and start focusing on your pages, on the manuscript itself. Yeah, it is very smart. I didn't do it, but because I found it difficult to rank agents. A lot of people use spreadsheets, so I also didn't do that. But if you are adept at spreadsheets, this is a good way to, rank your agents. Here's something I did have to do very reluctantly, but I'm glad that I did. Now is a really good time for you to learn how to put yourself out there. Because the biggest difference between a writer and a published author is being in the public eye, really, that's what it comes down to. When you are a published author, if you want your books to sell, you have to put yourself out there and meet other writers, meet readers, hopefully, and get comfortable with speaking in public. That's kind of why I'm here today. I think most writers are introverts, so that's probably the hardest thing you'll have to do, is learn to put yourself out there and talk to people, meet other people, kind of get over that fear. Social media, that is something that agents and publishers look for. You don't have to have a lot of followers, but they want to know that you're willing to do that you're willing to step up and market yourself and help them sell your book. An interesting story, so when I was on submission, and that means that's when we had my book and we were giving it out to publishers, and we were waiting to hear back whether they wanted to buy my book. I was at the Book Passage conference, and I happened to run into, because it's a very small conference, it's like maybe 50, 60 people, and so I ended up kind of eating with an editor who I had submitted to and I hadn't heard from yet. I didn't mention it, but she remembered my name, and she ended up passing on my book. But one of the things she did point out was that she really liked my platform. She liked the things I was doing on social media. And that surprised me, because I didn't know she was looking. So many times you put stuff out there and no one says anything, and so you don't know people are actually looking. And they are. Agents and editors are looking, whether or not they actually comment or like your post. If they have your manuscript on their desk, they're going to look you up. So that's something to keep in mind. Yes?
You have a website?
I do have a website.
Did you make that website?
I did not. It's not a great website.
Did you have it put together before you started querying or after you published?
So I had a harder time with a website for whatever reason. I felt like, who am I to have a website at this point? I didn't have a book deal yet, so I dragged my feet on a website. But I'm told I shouldn't have done that. While you're querying, before you query, it's really good to have a website right off the bat, because that's another thing. They will look up whether you have a website and they will check out what you are saying. So social media and website, those are good things to have even before you start querying, because you're kind of building an audience. Later on, when you start going to conferences, you'll meet people that have been following you and you'll become friends with them. And it's just kind of it's a nice way to start to meet people. It feels weird, but it's true. Yes, and so then I also say that you really have to be very patient. Querying takes a long time. I'll tell you this, but I know you'll do it anyway. Don't keep checking your email. And then my absolute #1 tip for most everything is to just do it. Because if you don't, it's just a crazy pipe dream. So, thank you very much. Yes, do you have a question?
So, what do you put on your Facebook page as, promoting yourself? What do you put on it?
So when I was querying, I put things like, I would do things like that were more personal and not necessarily about writing. I love to cook, so I would have pictures of me cooking or the things that I was making. For me, cooking and food have a lot to do with my writing in a way, so I might comment and say something like, I was writing today and I got hungry, so I made this thing that I was writing about in my book. I did that a lot. I remember, I think my very first Instagram post Because I wasn't really on social media until I started writing and I knew I had to be on it. So this isn't something I really liked to do before. But I joined Capital Crimes, and they were going to have an anthology. The theme was Northern California cemeteries. So I went to the cemetery that I was going to mention in my short story, and I took pictures and I posted those pictures. And I talked a little bit about the Capital Crimes anthology and the deadline that was coming up. Yes?
The obvious, why an agent? What do they cost?
So for me, I decided to go the traditional route because at the time I wasn't working full time. So we were a one-income family with 2 kids. I didn't have a lot of money to invest in copy editors, an artist to design a book cover, a developmental editor, that sort of thing. And so I didn't want to have to put in much money, if any, up front. An agent doesn't cost you anything until they sell your book, and then they will take a percentage of your advance as well as your royalties. An agent negotiates your book deal for you. So, like, there was a lot of things in that book deal that I did not understand. World rights, transmedia rights. Do you know what that is?
Yeah.
Oh, see, I didn't know what that was. I had already signed the thing, and it wasn't until months later that came up, and I was like, what is that? And it turns out it's TV and film rights. So there's a lot of things that I didn't understand, nor did I want to learn about. And so my agent explained them, and she dealt with that for me. And again, like, if you have trouble with your publisher later on down the line, issues, whatever, the agent gets to be the bad guy. She's your hammer. Yeah.
Do you keep your Facebook author page separate from your personal page?
I do. So when I started out, I also didn't understand that there was like a business page and your own personal pages. So I did have Facebook before, but it was private, and I only had followers or friends that I knew in real life. And so I kept it that way when I started writing, because I post pictures of my children all the time. So I created a new account, but it was a personal account. It wasn't a business account, because I didn't realize there was a difference. And I used that for my writing. And then later on, when I signed with Crooked Lane, they're like, you need an author page. And so that's when so now I have 3 Facebook accounts, and it's kind of a pain, but yeah. Yes, Lady Purple?
If you want to talk to agents, San Francisco Writing Conference, which is in February-ish, has a really good system for speed dating and for talking. You do it by appointment, so you're not like standing in line and getting all freaked out. So that's something to consider. You get one with your conference package, and then if you want to talk to more agents, I think it's $50 for additional.
What is this?
This is San Francisco Writers Conference, so something local.
Yeah.
And it's big and available to everybody. So that's one of the things they specialize in.
Yeah.
I think that one is put together by the same people that they do them in several cities throughout the U.S. They have one in San Diego, I think, too.
Okay.
And then there was one in Sacramento recently as well. They're kind of expanding. But I actually have like a sheet of paper, but I couldn't make enough copies of it, so I'll have Margie email that to you too, and that includes some of the San Francisco one.
Yeah, Sacramento one wasn't as
Oh.
great as advertised, so.
Oh, okay. You're gonna have to.
I have people who go to these things.
Okay, so you're gonna have to spill the dirt. I want to hear it.
I'll tell you later.
Okay, yes.
London is great.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
we hoped.
And then you had a question, sir?
Yeah, with social media, do you have one that works better or is more popular than other ones, or do you get on Instagram, Facebook, Blue Sky?
I think you have to do which one that you prefer. I tend to I like Facebook the best. I think it's the most versatile because you can have multiple photos in different shapes, and then you can also caption the photos. But Instagram seems to be where more readers, bookstagrammers are, so I kind of do both, Instagram and Facebook. The other one is Blue Sky. I'm on there a little bit, but I never really liked Twitter. It was just too fast, I just didn't care for Twitter that much. And Blue Sky is a little bit like Twitter, but nicer.
Nicer?
Yeah, yeah.
That kind of.
Yes.
Have you gone down the book talk rabbit hole that's on TikTok?
I did a little bit. I kind of dabbled. So I actually, technically, I do have a TikTok account too. I am not great at video. I'm not great at putting the camera on my. And so that's the other thing. I think with social media, they do tend to like the camera on the person. They do like photos of you, and I like to take photos of other things. I think that's the reporter in me. So I have to remember sometimes to turn the camera around to look. Take pictures of myself, and so it's, for me, the video part is really hard. Like once it's like moving pictures for some reason, and then there's sound too, right? So I can't multitask enough with that, but that is a great way to find readers, people who do the book talk and the Instagram type thing. That's a better way than Facebook. Yeah. Was there another question around here? Yes.
I have 2 questions.
Sure.
One of them is that I tend to be kind of a hermit and kind of extrovert, introvert.
Mhm.
Writing is very introvert. And I went to one of the conferences to do a live pitch, and I had 3 agents saying, I want your book, send me pages,
Mhm.
okay? I worked so hard putting together packages and everything else to send to these agents, and when I did, 2 of them did not answer me back ever, and the 3rd one said, I'm sorry, we're just not interested in, we don't take this kind of material. How do I, and that hurt me, man.
Yeah.
How do I really personally take this when they say to you, we're interested in your material, and then they reject you totally?
I think you just have to learn to develop a thick skin. I know, that is the bummer.
Thick skin.
Yeah, so I will say this. Again, it goes back to no agent is better than an agent that's not the right fit. The fact of the matter is, an agent will have to read your manuscript 20, 30 times before you go out on submission. And that includes the time that they're reading it to decide whether they want to offer you representation. So you want someone who is passionate about you and passionate about your book, because they have to sell it to someone else and make someone else passionate about it too. Because again, you can find the right editor, but then that editor for a publisher has to sell it to their team at the publishing house. So there's a lot of roadblocks. So you want someone who is going to jump those roadblocks with you. So if they reject you, then you have to tell yourself and realize that person is not the right agent for you, and move on. The ones that you never heard from, you might have gotten lost in the pile. It's also okay to nudge them. After a few, I would give it a month. Sometimes they will tell you in their submission guidelines or in their profiles that it takes them 3 months to make a decision. So after those 3 months, you can nudge them and say, oh, my name is so-and-so, I sent you my query on such and such date. Can you tell me, where am I on your list or something like that? Yeah.
And I have a second question,
Mhm.
which is I'm interested in the capital crimes. Could you tell me a little bit about it? If I wanted to join and I live here in Auburn, how do I take part in the events that happen in Sacramento?
Absolutely. Well, Mac is a member, and she's also a member as well. So Capital Crimes is open to anybody. We're our chapter organization for Sisters in Crime, which is a crime writers organization. So we meet monthly on Zoom, and we try to focus those, because it's since the pandemic, really, when we shifted to Zoom, we found that we were able to get members from all over the world, really, and that really helped bump up our membership. We have a lot of very active local members as well, including myself. So we continue to meet on Zoom, and we try to have those meetings be something educational, either focused on the craft or the business of publishing, so that anyone, anywhere can participate and learn from us. And that allows us to have speakers from all over the world, like really big names too, which is great. But we also meet every other month at a local bookstore, and Sacramento region has like I think 9 to 11 local independent bookstores. And so it's a way to bring people into those local bookstores, and it's also a great way for us to meet in person and talk and shop. And usually afterwards we go get a drink or we go eat something and just hang out together. We also have a holiday party in December. In the summer we have an in-person get together as well. We met in West Sacramento at Bike Dog Brewery and Dusty Baker Wines. They share a joint facility. That was really fun. Matt was there. So there's usually food and wine or food and drinks involved. And then we do, every month we interview a member author. And usually if they have a book coming out or...
I like that.
Yeah, and that's great because it's a great way to, we keep that on Zoom as well because that means anybody anywhere can learn more about this author. So it's a great way to market our members who have books.
Excellent.
Yeah, and then we keep the videos on our website so people can check it out later too. Yeah. Yes.
Do any of your members self-publish?
Oh yeah, yeah. We have a lot of self-published. And so a lot of those people are featured in our Meet the Author group too. Yeah. Yes.
You forgot to mention your little trips. I love them. The cemetery trip.
Oh,
Mondays.
yes. So every once in a while we do field trips. And apparently the cemetery field trip was before my time. It was the historic cemetery in Sacramento near the Buddhist church on Riverside Boulevard, I believe.
And they had a tour guide tell you.
Yes.
when.
Yeah. And then our most recent one was Dorothea Puente's house, which was fascinating. Because the person who bought the house, they bought it because they thought that was really cool. Yeah. Dorothea Puente, do you remember her?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So we took a tour, and it was the detective in charge of the case gave the tour and answered a bunch of questions afterwards. It was really fascinating. Yeah. Yes.
A significant number of small and medium-sized publishers are not working with agents anymore. They want to be pitched directly by authors. Do you have a feeling of, pros, cons for authors?
So I think some of the pros of that, and I'm not sure that they prefer to be to work with unagented authors or that they've opened up to unagented authors, but the pros of that is that it takes away some of the gatekeeping. It removes at least one layer of gatekeeping and gives the publishers more access to authors. So that's a definite benefit. I think the cons for the author is you really have to know what you're doing. Like I don't know what I'm doing, and I didn't know what I was doing before. So I don't know the ins and outs of that contract, but my agent does. So it's a personal choice. Some people, they are able to get a deal with a publisher, and then they can go to an agent and say, hey, I have a deal, can you be my agent? And then they get the deal before the agent. Yes?
Back to your comment about the agent gets a percentage of the movie rights. There's a story about John Grisham. He, of course, is very famous for his first 4 books that were turned into really hit movies. Well, he had written his 5th book, and he had a table set out with his books for sale. And this guy walks over and he says, oh, I love your books. They're just great. I love the stories. And they chatted for a while. And then John Grisham says, well, do you want to buy this next book? And the guy says, oh, no, I'll wait for the movie. John Grisham never sold a book to the movies after that. So I don't know about his agent, what the agent thought about the percentage he lost, but he only sold his first 4 books for movies. He's written 18 books.
That's an interesting take. I mean, the thing is, he would still get a lot of money from the movie company for selling his rights to the book. Yeah, but That's interesting. Yes, you have a question?
Sorry to backtrack a little bit.
That's
to your
okay.
Query, on line 7, you said, this standalone book is the first in a proposed series. So there's a little bit of back and forth I hear going around about whether to pitch like it's a standalone or whether you have a series or it's like series potential is wording.
I think series potential is probably a better way to say it, yes.
I got pushback on that pretty hard.
Yeah, so again, it speaks to the fluctuating market. You know, one day agents and publishers want, it's not so much the agents, it's the publishers.
Right.
One day the publishers want series and that's all they care about. And it also depends on the genre, like cozies are almost always series. And then the next day they don't want series, they want standalone thrillers. So,
This fits in your, this is cozy, right?
mine is traditional, it's
But
not,
some cozy elements.
um,
Or are those taken out? It seems like you have some cozy elements.
it really lands more traditional because it's in a real place, it's not fictionalized, yeah. It just doesn't have the gore, yeah. So it's more traditional. But regardless of how you word that, your book has to be a standalone in the sense that it has a beginning and a conclusion. You can kind of hint, but there can't be like a real cliffhanger. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Everything has to be resolved.
Yeah. Yes.
So you would suggest querying hundreds of agents?
Not the first go-round, but yes, I think most authors end up querying, 100 or more agents.
Wow.
Yeah, I know, it seems very daunting.
That was another lead-in. Could you share your request rate if you have like stats on that, just for validation purposes?
I don't actually know them, but I was also very fortunate. I did not have to query that many agents. And part of the reason I didn't do the way that I didn't rank agents and the reason I didn't go that route was because I was just beginning to, so first of all, when I first finished my manuscript in January, I immediately queried 5 agents. I didn't know a lot about them. I had seen them on podcasts and thought they were really great. Turns out they were fairly big agents. And my manuscript was not ready, and I got immediately rejected. But it did help me to figure out, okay, I need to revise my book. And then once I revised and I started querying again, it didn't take me very long. I was kind of playing around with the Twitter pitches at the time, and I was planning to do the PitMat event in June, so I was practicing with the April and May events. When Lori liked my pitch, I kind of liked Lori, I did some research, so I decided, okay, well, I'll try and query her. And before PitMat happened, she had offered me representation, so yeah.
That was like the heyday for Twitter.
Yeah, I think it was maybe 2 years later that PitMat ended. Mm-hmm. Yes?
When you say that you were rejected by those agents, so you knew you had to do more in your book, did you feel like they wanted to fool around with your creativity, or was it your structure? What was it about your book? Did they give you?
They often do not give you any critique or
how
feedback.
do you know?
I think one agent said that it wasn't different enough.
Okay.
And so that made me think, okay, maybe play around a little bit with the characters. So initially, the detective character was a really amiable, nice, kind of low-key guy. And I decided to make him grumpy. And that it was better, and he was a lot more fun to write. And so it wasn't necessarily a specific comment, but it made me rethink and rework my pages. Because the one thing I will say is I got a lot of response right away. They did want to read my pages. So my query letter worked, it was the pages that weren't working. Yeah.
So all of this is on the book that you have right over there?
Yeah. But so what happened, as Margie, I believe she mentioned, I was able to get an agent pretty quickly, but I was also lucky. I knew I needed a development or an editorial agent, because there are different kinds of agents. Some agents want your book ready to go to publisher. with maybe minor changes. But there are some who are editorial agents who will work with you on editing your book. And I knew I needed that because we only had the single income. I didn't have money to hire an editor to help me out.
What's the logic on that versus, isn't the like three cooks in the kitchen at that point? Because you have your editor is going to be editorial, obviously.
Right.
So you just thought it wasn't quite ready yet, so you wanted to go with it.
Yes, because I needed a third party who was kind of an expert. And maybe not on the writing itself, but on what the market wanted, and could tell me this part of the story doesn't work, and this part does. And by then, I was still really early in the writing community, so I didn't have a lot of friends that I knew could help me with that part of it too. So this is before I really beta read it and all that. And so Lori, when she did the editorial, it wasn't like she said, you need to do it this way. She said, this part doesn't work, but it's up to you to figure out what does work. So she doesn't want to mess with your creative part, but she knows it's not going to work, and if it doesn't work for her, it probably won't work for an editor. So she had that perspective. Yes?
If you're using a pen name, would you write your query better in the pen name or in the name that you want to check?
I'm not entirely sure, but I think it would be safer to use your real name because you're really not going to need to worry about the pen name part until you have a book deal and it gets published and you have the name on the cover and that sort of thing. And then that's a long time. You have lots of copies to read before you get to that point. So, but you will have to decide. You probably will want like your public-facing social media and all of those things, your website to be under your pen name.
Thank you.
Yes.
I read Juliet Blackwell, and I know that she was one of the past presidents of Sisters in Crime, which is involved in this. Do you actually get workshops by people like her?
Depending. If one of us knows that person, we can invite them.
Juliet Blackwell is her pen name. I don't know her real name.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if you are a member and you want to suggest having a tutorial or like a meeting with her, you can definitely suggest that. I can give you the president's name. For instance, the Sisters in Crime, the national organization, they have webinars that you have access to their videos, and they have better access to like the really big authors. We have a upcoming meeting in August where we'll be talking about historical mysteries, and we'll have Cheryl Head and Naomi Hidehata and Shelley Blatton-Stroud, who is local. We've had Lori King before. We had, she wrote The Marsh King's Daughter. We've had her on there. I'm just blanking on her name because I have a camera on me.
Good excuse.
We've had some fairly big names, and that's just for our local chapter. But I think the national chapter, they have even more access to those authors.
Is that only for women?
No.
Sisters in Crime?
We have siblings, yes. We have several members who are men.
So Jennifer, so I have a question about your hardback book and then your paperback. So when I asked you before about your hardcover artwork and title, you had a little input in that. So now with your paperback, do you know what the artwork is and do you have some input?
It's going to be the same as my hardback, and so I didn't have input on that.
Oh, because sometimes they do change it up.
Yeah,
Okay.
they do, but not in my case.
So then in terms of with your publisher, does that mean your hardback books sold very well, or how many copies have they sold?
So I have so basically the number of copies that they published or that they printed have sold. There are like 1 or 2 floating around online, I think, depending on the day. I purchased a bunch of copies for myself to sell at events like this, at other conferences and things like that, where we don't have booksellers. And so, for instance, like a bookstore can't get my book anymore, but it's available on some places online, like 1 or 2 copies, and then the ones that I have. And so that's why they decided to do a paperback.
Oh, okay, so they do, your hardback has to sell so many copies before they decide to release it?
I think so. Yeah, so some publishers do it differently. Some publishers have an automatic, and that's part of your book deal. We'll say a year after publication, we will have a paperback will come out. Others have been doing it simultaneously, and I believe that is because libraries and book clubs prefer hardbacks, and so they want to be able to sell to those groups. My book is available in a lot of libraries, which is great. But most people don't want to pay a hardback price. I know I didn't. So they also publish hardbacks, and so that gives people the choice. And I think moving forward, a lot of publishers are doing that more.
How about as an ebook?
Oh yes, it's also available as an ebook. That's almost automatic now, and an audiobook. It's available as an audiobook. And those are also available on bookshop.org and LibreForm, which means it can benefit local independent bookstores, as well as Amazon and all those other places. Yes?
And what are you working on now? What's coming next?
Well, I'm hoping book 2 of the Maya Wong series, because I love book series, I love mystery series, and so I always hoped this would be a series. So I started writing book 2. I'm about halfway through. I'm hoping to finish this summer, and we'll see if my publisher will want it. Yeah. Yes?
How is the price of a book set? Is it just a collaboration between the publisher and the author, or
I have nothing to do with that. I don't know the market like that. I don't know the financing, that sort of thing. And so that's something that's determined by the publisher. Yes.
I know Philip's so kindly doing a video of this, but is there any way to get a copy of your PowerPoint? We send you an email?
Yeah, so I can put together that as well as that other form. It's like a list of websites that I've used. It's a very old list, and it's a PDF, so I couldn't edit it, but that's a good starting point for you guys. So I'll send that to Margie, and she can get that out to you guys.
Right, because I can't write fast enough. I just can't.
Yeah,
And listen at the same time.
I totally get that, yes. Yeah.
I had a question. You mentioned earlier about an editorial agent, and one of the benefits is they know what the market wants. So my question for you as an author who's halfway through with your new book, knowing what the market wants, how much percentage does that play into your storyline? You have a story you want to tell, but then there's what the market wants. And how do those interplay with you as a writer?
So I might have misspoken a little bit. I think agents know what editors are looking for, and editors know the market, so it's a little bit. But that doesn't play into anything at all for me. And you shouldn't be, you'll be told that you don't want to chase trends, because by the time you are actually ready to query, that trend may be over. So don't think of writing in that way. You need to think about the story you want to tell and do the best job you can of telling that story.
Thank you. Couple cries.
Right, well you guys had a lot of questions. That's the most questions I've ever had.